Sonali, obviously things have moved quickly to your point. We're looking at the road leading up to today, and BNN Bloomberg has done its own reporting on the online data room that had been set up by Sam Bankman-Fried to talk to potential investors these last 24 hours, if not a little bit more, but it's happened so quickly about receiving billions of dollars. But even those documents themselves speak to how quickly things were changing, and when people have to make decisions on massive multi-billion-dollar investments based on what they're seeing in real time, certainly there was a lot of uncertainty in the air.
Certainly he was looking for money for the last week or so, coming from Binance, and then after that deal had fallen through, he had sought to try to keep not investors necessarily, but clients who had lost money whole. And so what happens from here? He has stepped down. The person who is going to be overseeing now the rest of this proceeding was the man who really stepped in the wake of the Enron scandal and helped do the same. So Enron is an interesting comparison to that degree here. But to your point here, you know, what is there to offer investors anymore? What is left, especially when some of this is calculated in the form of digital assets, John? So who gets paid, when, and how? We've already seen large investors write down their stakes, so not expecting much back. Going back to what Kriti had said before, does it dent the confidence of the industry? That's the big problem here. Should we see issues among other companies? Remember, BlockFi had halted withdrawals. Voyager Digital was part of the FTX empire here. Skybridge as well. There are questions about what they do in relation to FTX. What comes next to all these other companies?
All right, lots to continue watching unfold. Sonali, thanks very much. Bloomberg Sonali Basak joining us. The turmoil in crypto started, as we heard Sonali reference, with the unraveling of the deal between Binance and FTX. And earlier today, Binance's CEO spoke at the Indonesia FinTech Summit about his decision to back out.
From our perspective, the deal did not make sense from a number of fronts. From a financial perspective, is a big hole. From new users, FTX, we have very high overlap. We cover all the regions they cover, and they have much less users than us. From a technology or product perspective, I think we have a superior product. They don't have anything that we don't have. So our original intention was to let's save the users. But then the news of misappropriating user funds, and especially U.S. regulatory agencies' investigations, we're like, okay, we can't touch that anymore.
All right, joining us now for a roundtable discussion on all of this, Bloomberg's David Pan and Cameron Crise as well. David, I'll start with you. You know, in the reality that Binance and FTX had this tense relationship, how are we going to look back at that role in obviously creating a lot of chaos and uncertainty throughout all of this?
Yeah, over the past 2 years that we've seen, FTX has grown exponentially. It has, ascended to be the rival of Binance. Binance actually has been in the industry for a much longer time. So it's interesting to see, like how this deal between FTX and Binance fell apart. And then it will be also interesting to see what will happen to the rest of the industry, especially for Binance. Would they be benefiting from the fall of FTX, or would it have more scrutiny from the regulators after this?
Well, let's broaden this conversation out and talk again about something that a lot of people were worried about when the headlines first came out, is contagion risk. Cam, I want to bring you in here because when we first heard about the commencing of this Chapter 11 bankruptcy, as well as a resignation of SBF from FTX as CEO, you did see an immediate fade, not just in Bitcoin, but in the NASDAQ and, of course, the S&P 500 futures as well, only to rebound. Talk to us a little bit about why someone who perhaps is not directly invested in crypto should care about this story.
Well, I guess the primary interest is sort of a rubbernecking, because I think I've had about half a dozen people tell me already that they can't wait for the film of this to come out. So from a dramatic perspective, it's a remarkable story, the rise and fall. From a financial perspective, listen, I think if you drew a Venn diagram of people who trade crypto and trade speculative stocks, you probably got a fair amount of overlap. So from that perspective, losses on one front can influence behavior or risk mitigation on the other front. From a systemic perspective, I'm a little more skeptical. if you look at the combined drop in market cap of crypto from its ding-dong highs about a year ago, it's lost roughly $2 trillion, which is, a lot, but it's actually less than the combined loss of market cap of just Amazon, Meta, and Tesla. And obviously, the equity market has inflicted more losses than just those three companies, the bond market as well. So from a loss perspective, in an aggregate basis, the wealth effect from the crypto demise is it's not that big compared to what we've seen elsewhere. On an individual level, of course, someone who's been heavily involved will feel differently.
And David, the story of venture capitalists who have put so much money to work into the crypto area and FTX as well, what do we know about the road ahead on that front?
We've already seen some of the VC firms, they're accepting the losses, from FTX. We've seen Sequoia, they announced to write down over $200 million investment in FTX. And we also reported that, SoftBank is expected to lose about nearly $100 million in FTX. So it's a very dramatic event, and then a lot of the VC investors are caught off guard by the sudden fall of FTX, and we'll see what happens next. As far as we know, SBF is still in touch with a variety of investors in the industry.